Around 40 AmaZulu chiefs, members of the Zulu Royal Family and the premiers of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng have gathered at Buyafuthi Hostel in Katlehong for a cleansing ceremony aimed at easing deadly tribal tensions. Now, the intervention follows ongoing efforts by the government and traditional leaders to restore peace and stability. Now, to unpack the role that traditional leadership can actually play in resolving conflict and fostering lasting unity in urban communities, we're joined by cultural expert, Professor Sihawu Ngubane. Prof, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Simpio, and your viewers.
Now, Prof, Buyafuthi has a documented history of political and tribal violence, including the killing of an IFP MP, and you'll recall the injuries to councillors back in 2025, I beg your pardon. Now, in your view, has the character of this violence changed, or is what we're seeing now the same underlying conflict resurfacing?
It has changed a bit because if you look back between conflict that existed between IFP and ANC, mainly from people in KwaZulu-Natal staying in Gauteng in hostels, it was rife in the late 80s. So if you compare late 80s and now, I think it's much better, but we can still witness the killings taking place, and they are very persistent.
Nearly 40 Amakosi and members of the royal family, including Queen Nomzamo have traveled to Gauteng specifically to intervene. So what does the scale and the seniority of this particular delegation signal? Is this primarily a diplomatic gesture, or does it carry actual authority to change behavior on the ground?
It does in a way, but it would be more effective if the king himself was there or the prime minister was there. But the presence of Amakosi and Amabuto and the queen will make an impact to the hostel dwellers, just their presence, because their role is to maintain peace and harmony within the residents of hostels. So they are symbolic as custodian of peace.
And having said that, traditionally, Amakosi derive authority from the rural, the land-based governance structures. And Buyafuthi's residents are, I would call it the urban migrant workers, often generations removed from direct rural accountability to a specific king or inkosi. How does traditional authority translate, or fail to translate, as it were, into an urban hostel setting?
It does translate into safe places because from the hostels there are indunas that carry the delegated authority from their chiefs in the rural areas. You are aware that in the hostels there are people who come from different provinces within South Africa, but more specifically KwaZulu-Natal, the indunas, hostel indunas, come from the rural area, so they carry the same weight to the hostels, and they carry the same respect and dignity because of their loyalty to the king.
And the hostel system itself, going back to the apartheid era migrant labor policy, was structured with Amakosi and Izinduna as the intermediaries between the rural authority and urban workers. So is the royal family now stepping into a role that was, in fact, designated and designed by the apartheid administrators? How do you separate the legitimate cultural authority from that colonial era architecture?
Yeah, I think we applaud the move of coming to Gauteng and engaging with the Gauteng government, because their collaboration will influence the tensions and the concerns that exist between the hostel dwellers. So I think it's a good move that they have come physically to the hostels.
Now, Prof, I want to pick your brain on this. What specific tools does a chief have in this particular situation beyond the moral persuasion? Can Amakosi impose sanctions or mediate disputes formally or bind hostile factions to an agreement in a way that has consequences if broken?
I think what is important is the rebuilding of trust between the traditional leadership and the hostel dwellers. And I think their presence is to recommit themselves and build trust between the two. And the mere fact that Amakosi represent the kingship in KwaZulu-Natal helps them to recommit themselves to peace, because I think that's the main problem, that there are still many challenges, crime, drugs, and substance abuse taking place, and there's a lot of unemployment, and it affects economy in the country. So if there is harmony and stability, it will assist the hostel dwellers to recommit themselves to peace.
And we also saw Queen Nomzamo Myeni, and her presence was quite notable there. Historically, Prof, has the royal family sent female members to lead or perhaps co-lead this kind of conflict mediation? And does her presence change how the intervention is likely to be received by the hostel residents?
Simpiwe, it is quite transformative, because we know that significantly women are peacemakers. If two factions are fighting and a woman stands between them, that war is over. So I think they have utilized similar principles, that if there is a queen in their midst, they will respect the queen and also come into terms with one another,
Okay.
and the cause of tensions will be eliminated.
All right, Professor Ngubane, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Simpiwe.
Professor Sihawu Ngubane there, the cultural expert and professor of African languages at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, just helping us reflect on the all-important meeting of around 40 AmaZulu chiefs and members of the Zulu Royal Family and the premiers of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, who gathered at the Buyafuthi Hostel in Katlehong for a cleansing ceremony aimed at easing the deadly tribal tensions.